Economy. According to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the Indian economy in 2019 was nominally worth $2.957 trillion. It is the sixth largest economy by market exchange rates, and is, at $11.412 trillion, the third largest by purchasing power parity, or PPP. With its average annual GDP growth rate of 5.8% over the past 2 decades, and reaching 6.1% during 2011-12, India is one of the world's fastest-growing economies. However, the country ranks 140th in the world in nominal GDP per capita and 129th in GDP per capita at PPP. Until 1991, all Indian governments followed protectionist policies that were influenced by socialist economics. Widespread state intervention and regulation largely walled the economy off from the outside world. An acute balance of payments crisis in 1991 forced the nation to liberalize its economy. Since then it has slowly moved towards a free market system by emphasizing both foreign trade and direct investment inflows. India has been a member of WTO since January 1, 1995. The 513.7 million worker Indian labor force is the world's second largest, as of 2016. The service sector makes up 55.6% of GDP, the industrial sector 26.3% and the agricultural sector 18.1%. India's foreign exchange remittances of $70 billion in 2014, the largest in the world, contributed to its economy by 25 million Indians working in foreign countries. Major agricultural products include rice, wheat, oilseed, cotton, jute, tea, sugarcane, and potatoes. Major industries include textiles, telecommunications, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, food processing, steel, transport equipment, cement, mining, petroleum, machinery, and software. In 2006, the share of external trade in India's GDP stood at 24%, up from 6% in 1985. In 2008, India's share of world trade was 1.68%. In 2011, India was the world's 10th largest importer and the 19th largest exporter. Major exports include petroleum products, textile goods, jewelry, software, engineering goods, chemicals, and leather manufactures. Major imports include crude oil, machinery, gems, fertilizer, and chemicals. Between 2001 and 2011, the contribution of petrochemical and engineering goods to total exports grew from 14% to 42%. India was the second largest textile exporter after China in the world in the calendar year 2013. Averaging an economic growth rate of 7.5% for several years prior to 2007, India has more than doubled its hourly wage rates during the first decade of the 21st century. Some 431 million Indians have left poverty since 1985. India's middle classes are projected to number around 580 million by 2030. Though ranking 51st in global competitiveness, India ranks 17th in financial market sophistication, 24th in the banking sector, 44th in business sophistication, and 39th in innovation, ahead of several advanced economies, as of 2010. With 7 of the world's top 15 information technology outsourcing companies based in India, the country is viewed as the second most favorable outsourcing destination after the United States, as of 2009. India's consumer market, the world's 11th largest, is expected to become 5th largest by 2030. However, hardly 2% of Indians pay income taxes. Driven by growth, India's nominal GDP per capita has steadily increased from $329 in 1991, when economic liberalization began, to $1,265 in 2010, to an estimated $1,723 in 2016, and is expected to grow to $2,358 by 2020. However, it has remained lower than those of other Asian developing countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Thailand, and is expected to remain so in the near future. However, it is higher than that of most neighboring South Asian countries, such as Pakistan, Nepal, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. According to a 2011 PricewaterhouseCoopers (PwC) report, India's GDP at purchasing power parity could overtake that of the United States by 2045. During the next 4 decades, Indian GDP is expected to grow at an annualized average of 8%, making it potentially the world's fastest-growing major economy until 2050. The report highlights key growth factors: a young and rapidly growing working-age population, growth in the manufacturing sector because of rising education and engineering skill levels, and sustained growth of the consumer market driven by a rapidly growing middle class. The World Bank cautions that, for India to achieve its economic potential, it must continue to focus on public sector reform, transport infrastructure, agricultural and rural development, removal of labor regulations, education, energy security, and public health and nutrition. According to the Worldwide Cost of Living Report 2017 released by the Economist Intelligence Unit, EIU, which was created by comparing more than 400 individual prices across 160 products and services, 4 of the cheapest cities were in India: Bangalore, 3rd, Mumbai, 5th, Chennai, 5th, and New Delhi, 8th. Industries. India is a global hub for information technology and business process management. In 2017, the sector supported about 4 million high-skilled jobs and generated more than $160 billion in revenue, or 7.7% of India's GDP, with exports amounting to $99 billion. With more than 1 billion subscribers, India's telecommunication industry is the world's second largest. As of 2015, the industry contributed 6.5% of India's GDP and employed more than 4 million people. India has the world's 4th largest oil refinery capacity. The Jamnagar refinery in Gujarat is the largest oil refining complex in the world. Despite importing more than 70% of its crude oil demand, India is one of the world's top 10 exporters of refined petroleum products, amounting to about $26 billion in 2017. India has the world's 3rd largest construction industry. As of 2018, India's construction sector supported about 45 million jobs, making it the country's 2nd largest employer after agriculture. The metals and mining industry of India is one of the world's largest. It is the world's 3rd largest coal miner and 4th largest iron ore producer. India's massive infrastructure development plans has made the country the world's 3rd largest steel and cement manufacturer. In 2017, more than 29 million motor vehicles were manufactured in India, making the country's automotive industry the world's 5th largest. India's textile and apparel industry accounts for 5% of the country's GDP and more than 13% of its exports. India's gems and jewelry industry is the world's largest with annual revenues in excess of $75 billion. 75% of the world's diamonds are cut or polished in India, and overall net exports of gems and jewelry stood at more than $31 billion in 2018. India's pharmaceutical industry is among the world's largest. The country supplies more than 20% of the world's generic drugs by volume, and in 2017, India's generic drug exports totaled $17.3 billion. The healthcare services industry is growing by more than 16% annually and projected to cross $370 billion by 2022. The medical tourism sector generated $6 billion in revenue in 2018. India's R&D spending constitutes 60% of the biopharmaceutical industry. The Indian biotech industry grew by 15.1% in 2012-13, increasing its revenues from 204.4 billion Indian rupees to 235.24 billion Indian rupees, $3.94 billion. Exchange rate June 2013, $1 approximately 60 Indian rupees. Socioeconomic challenges. Since 2004, India has successfully lifted more 350 million people out of extreme poverty, and the percentage of population living below international poverty line is expected to fall to 0.1% by 2030 from 4.6% in 2018. However, despite the massive strides made by India in poverty elimination, the country still faces daunting socio-economic challenges. As per Brookings Institution 2018 report, 63 million people in India live below international poverty line of 137 rupees per day, $1.90 per day, the second highest in the world after Nigeria. As per 2014 Global Hunger Index, 30.7% of India's children under the age of 5 are underweight, while as per Food and Agriculture Organization's 2015 report, 15% of the entire population is undernourished. The Government of India has multiple ongoing schemes to eliminate hunger in the country, the midday meal scheme being one of them. According to a Walk Free Foundation report in 2016, there were an estimated 18.3 million people in India, or 1.4% of the population, living in the forms of modern slavery, such as bonded labor, child labor, human trafficking, and forced begging, among others. According to the 2011 census, there were 10.1 million child laborers in the country, a decline of 2.6 million, from 12.6 million child laborers in 2001. Since 1991, economic inequality between India's states has consistently grown. The per capita net state domestic product of the richest states in 2007 was 3.2 times that of the poorest. Corruption in India is perceived to have decreased. According to Corruption Perceptions Index, India ranked 76th out of 176 countries in 2016, from 85th in 2014.